Okay, Madam Mayor, I'm ready whenever you are. You have to unmute.
Yep. Good evening. We are now called to order. Roll call, Monica.
Councilman Wickenhagen,
Here.
Councilwoman Matson,
Here.
Councilwoman Vargas,
Here.
Councilman Peterson,
Here.
Councilman Bell,
Here.
Councilman Costello,
Here.
Councilman Carlson.
Here.
All present and accounted for, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Monica Lake tonight and remain standing for prayer by Pastor Alicia.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Almighty God, bless all the leaders of our land that we may be a people at peace among ourselves and a blessing to other nations of the earth. To the president and members of the cabinet, to governors of states, mayors of cities, and to all in administrative authority, grant wisdom and grace in the exercise of their duties. To senators and representatives and those who make our laws in states, cities, and towns, please give courage, wisdom, and foresight to provide for the needs of all our people and to fulfill our obligations in the community of nations. To the judges and officers of our court, give understanding and integrity that human rights may be safeguarded and true justice served for all people. And finally, teach our people to rely on your strength, God, and to accept their responsibilities to their fellow citizens, that we may elect trustworthy leaders and make wise decisions for the well-being of our society, that we may serve you faithfully in our generation and honor your name. Give grace to your servants, O Lord. Keep this nation under your care. Have mercy on us. Guide us in your ways. For those who hold office in the state of Washington and in the city of Selah, we pray for the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose, they may faithfully serve their offices to promote the well-being of all people. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Agenda changes, we have none. Public appearances, introductions, and presentations. Katrina Hinkle from the Downtown Association.
Good evening, everyone. Just a quick couple of things to update you on. We are starting back up our quarterly workshops for our businesses. The first one will be talking about the B&O tax credit program, where you can keep your B&O tax dollars here in Selah, not in Olympia. And you can also write off that with we're a nonprofit, so you can write those funds off as well. And you'll want to talk to your accountant about that. But we're going to have a B&O tax credit seminar about and show you how easy it is to keep your tax dollars here in Selah on September 15th. We're looking at 6:30 p.m. We're working on securing a location. And as soon as we have that, we will be getting that out on social media, in our newsletter, and hopefully giving some of our businesses a direct phone call that have voiced some interest. We are coming into the season of doing our annual nominations for businesses and citizens that have done an outstanding job in keeping their areas looking amazing, their landscaping or maybe a facade. So those awards will be on November 2nd and they will be at Pastime. And I will be sending out a link for folks to nominate some really great looking areas in town. And so please watch social media and our newsletter for that. We are working in the background on our annual lighted Christmas parade and maybe getting Santa to light a Christmas tree for us at the end of it and some festivities at the Civic Center. So be on the lookout for that coming up. And then last but not least, we are working on a project where we want to ask all of the businesses along First and Natchez to please put up the white lights like you see on the Wells Fargo building and on the Liberty building on their buildings. And our hope is to not only create a really nice ambiance for the city, but also help keep our streets a little safer, give our law enforcement a break without the shadows around our buildings. And so those are just some of the things we're working on. There's a lot. Are there any questions? Great, thanks for the opportunity to talk to you guys.
Thank you, Katrina. Getting to know our business, we have none. Communications, Mr. Case.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We are presently conducting the regular meeting portion of today's session. State law does not require a non-charter code city such as the city of Selah to allot time for public comment during a regular meeting between the mayor and city council. Historically, the city has chosen to allot time for public comment during its regular meetings, subject to a maximum of 2 minutes per commenter and common sense standards of decorum. Recently, those standards of decorum have been increasingly infringed. Those wishing to offer public comments during a regular meeting must comply with the following process and standards. Each commenter must state his or her full name and whether he or she is a registered voter residing within the city limits of Selah. Each commenter is limited to one comment and a maximum duration of 2 minutes per regular meeting. A maximum of 30 minutes per regular meeting will be allotted for all public comments. Comments must be constructive and respectful. No profanity, insults, defamation, or direct or implied personal attacks will be allowed. Criticism of city policy is allowed, but personal criticism of any individual is not allowed. The public comment process is not a question and answer process. Also, each commenter should speak solely for himself or herself, rather than purporting to speak on behalf of others, repeating verbatim or nearly verbatim what another commenter has said, or repeating what a written document says. In-person comments will be heard from the podium in the order offered by commenters, and during the COVID shutdown, written comments will be read aloud in the order received by city staff, and telephonic comments may also be heard. The mayor may cut off any in-person or telephonic comment that he or she deems inappropriate, and city staff at the direction of the mayor may disallow or modify any written comment that is deemed inappropriate. These standards are subject to revision. Those who infringe the applicable standards may be barred from offering public comments during future regular meetings. Public comment during regular meetings is not the exclusive method to communicate with the mayor or city council on any topic. People may send emails or letters, leave voicemails, or request in-person meetings to or with the mayor or any member or members of the city council. The mayor and each member of the city council has personal discretion over how and when he or she might respond to emails, letters, voicemails, and requests for in-person meetings.
Thank you. Monica, do we have any written comments tonight?
There were no comments submitted, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Proclamations and announcements. We have none. Consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion without discussion. Should any council member request that any item on the consent agenda be considered separately, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and become part of the regular agenda.
Move to approve consent agenda.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Kevin, seconded by Kevin, seconded by Russ. All those in favor, raise your hand. Oppose? Thank you. Monica, please read the consent agenda.
Approval of minutes, August 10, 2021 council meeting, and approval of claims and payroll.
Thank you. Public hearings, Mr. Henney.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. First item is action item L1. It's a public hearing to consider the adoption of the Selah Transit Development Plan 2022-2027 and the annual report. All of this is a 6-year plan. It must be updated yearly with an annual report from the previous year and a description of projects and budget for the following 6. Attached is the Selah Transit Plan for your review. We had a written comment. It's on the it's attached to this agenda item, and they're asking to go and look at some of the changes in our bus schedule, and I will have to set up some sort of a workshop and try to get some public information requests out to go over these. the bus book that is published by the city of Yakima is already out at printing. So we won't be able to accommodate these changes. And I haven't fully digested these changes to see what they really would entail. I also have contacted Yakima Transit and asked, because I followed up on some requests, and asked about adding a stop over by the YMCA where the new aquatic center is. And I talked to the transit manager. He's agreeable to it. He says that we'll have to revise our memorandum with the city of Yakima, our MOU, and we can move forward on that. I'm waiting for MedStar, their manager Justin, to evaluate the time to add a new stop in front of the aquatic center and see what that would do to the buses either arriving late or if they had to stop. I don't think it'll take much time. Anyway, I'm waiting to hear back from him, so hopefully we'll have that figured out, and the memorandum of agreement with City of Yakima revised and approved by them and then by you folks, and we can make it to the bus book that will be out for the winter schedule. So I guess I'm asking you, open it up for a public hearing if anybody's logged on that wants to discuss it.
Okay. We are now going to have an open public hearing on for the annual report for the transit, Selah Transit. Council members, do you have questions of Joe? Suzanne?
Joe, I'm curious, you said that it's already in print, so we couldn't make some of the changes, I'm assuming, such as the reverse route and such. But when could we, or when does it go to print again, that if those found to be beneficial ideas that we could perhaps do them?
Around the 1st of November that we'd have to send something in to them. And I don't know, we want to do these reverse routes, if they're going to, how much time they're going to take. You know, I haven't really digested. This kind of came in and we read through it. It's a little comprehensive, so I'd have to digest that and see how that would, and then meet with MedStar to see how much of a time change it would take in order to do that and keep on schedule. I'm not sure where this person came up with these times. I believe they said they met with the bus drivers themselves. So, but yeah, I go through it. She just didn't get to it. They don't have the time. They came in a little late, this comment. So,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Les, you had a question?
Yeah, I think Joe mostly answered it, but I guess my question is, are they trying to help us save money? Are they trying to help us save time?
Well, if you read through it, they're wanting they want a reverse route. They want to go to the Yakima Transit center down on, I believe it's 3rd, and in past, we were not welcome to go down there. And the memorandum of understanding with the city of Yakima, we were able to negotiate the stop there on 40th in front of Fred Meyer, and then proceed over to the Orthopedics Northwest on 16th. And that's the only 2 stops that we have. And I don't know, I was reading through there and trying to digest what they had in there, but we do go to Union Gap right now. We have we stop there in front of Sears on Main Street, Union Gap. And there people can get on the Yakima bus. Yeah, they also go to that stop too. It's in Union Gap, but the Yakima goes there. So people can transfer there to a Yakima bus. They could also get on Pato to go to Lower Valley. And I believe people from People stops there as well. So I guess we'll just have to sit down and talk about our whole system and see if there's some improvements we can do to this or what we can do to try to appease some people. But so far, this is the only person that's made this kind of a request.
My thought is, I don't want to cause a lot of chaos with the riders and confusion of what they're already doing if it's not going to be a money saving or a time saving effort.
Sure. Wow,
But-
I agree with that.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Council, do we have any other questions? We have a few attendees. Do any of the attendees have any questions? Okay, seeing none, we are going to close the public hearing. Thank you. L2, Mr. Peters.
All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor. This next item on your agenda, L2, is an open record public hearing to consider an ordinance of the city of Selah adopting an updated capital facility plan as an ancillary document to the city of Selah's comprehensive plan and establishing an effective date. Pursuant to RCW 3670A, each jurisdiction in the state of Washington must include a capital facilities plan element in their comprehensive plan, which includes its capital projects, their estimated cost, and their proposed methods of financing. The city of Selah is required to update its capital facility plan every 6 years, and the last time the city adopted its capital facility plan and updated it was July of 2012. It's important to note that the capital facility plan, the reason why we're pursuing updating this at the time that we are right now is we've already adopted a sewer system plan recently, extensions to our water distribution facilities, as well as our sewer distribution facilities to serve different areas of the city. And there are many capital improvements that we have included in those plans, as well as our water system plan is also in the process of being approved by Department of Ecology. And then also a number of years ago, when I first got here, we went and adopted a sub-area plan, which updated many of our planning goals and policies for the downtown area and population projections and things throughout the rest of the city. And so this also takes into account that adopted plan and brings these all together in a coherent way that it would allow the city, as we move forward for submitting for grant applications or for submitting other funding proposals, or just planning for future improvements, such as city halls and police stations and water and sewer lines and plant expansions, things of those nature. It will allow the city council a method to look and see what our priorities are and set them based upon what the funding is that we have for those different projects. I'd also like to note, there's been a little bit of I'll call it a shuffling of paper behind the scenes with regard to this plan. We, under our previous management, we were given some specific directions with regard to certain facilities in the city of Selah that we weren't going to be including an update to those in our capital facility element. And as of yesterday, one of our council members, Councilman Bell, came and sat down with me, and we went over some of these different changes, and as well as we spoke to our new city administrator, and he approved that we should make these minor efforts to update these different parts of our capital facility plan. So that's why you saw the email come out, I think it was early this morning, with several addition and changes to the capital facility plan. And so I'll go through the different changes, just briefly explaining what they were about. And then you look at your capital facility plan on those pages if you so wish. So the first change that Councilman Bell suggested was on page 56A The fourth paragraph, there is some concern that the school district should be dropped out of the appointing authorities for the SPRSA and the new interlocal agreement that we signed. And so we've appropriately made that correction to the capital facility plan. The second page or change was on page 63, and there was some incorrect square footage for one of our fire stations, number 22. And so we're made that change. It's about approximately 10,500 square feet. On page 66 on table 25, there's a list of priorities with regard to the city hall and police station. And so we've made some changes there. We've made the police station priority number 1. And that has a $8 to $10 million cost estimate and a start date of 2021. And that's in line with the council's committee with regard to the police station, updating that. And then we also created a separate line for the city hall and listed an unknown cost and unknown start date for that, as it's still a priority in our plan, and eventually the city will have to address it. And then finally, we moved the civic center down to priority number 3. On page 67, we deleted an entire paragraph that there was a reference to the old police station and us still having facilities in there. I think that was just an oversight on HLA's part. They didn't recognize that was the old building, so we removed that. And then finally on page 71, the table of government facilities and properties, we've changed the city hall relocation to court/police station with a $8 to $10 million cost estimate and a start date of 2022 to be in concert with table 25. And so those are the 5 changes that we have to the plan. The planning commission has reviewed the document and found it correct, and is recommending that that you hold the public hearing and approve the adopting ordinance. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Okay, we are going to open this up for a public hearing.
I think we have two questions from council members, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Kevin.
So Jeff, I'm going through it and I may have missed it, but was there any mention of the tennis courts? Because there's been some kind of, we're not sure who's doing what from time to time. I looked through the parts that discussed our agreements and what we do with the school district, but I didn't see that mentioned to where that is part of our maintenance.
So to answer your question directly, the answer is no. The tennis courts are not mentioned. They are included in it should be included in our parks plan. Unfortunately, I can only go and put in our capital facility plan those plans which have been adopted by the city and as priorities. And so in this case, the decision was made more than several years ago that we weren't going to be updating our parks plan at this time. So those aren't mentioned in this plan. And I believe they're under a separate contract, and maybe Joe can address specifically what's happening with those either later in the council agenda or now.
I can do it now, it doesn't matter. The tennis courts, originally they were kind of a 50-50 between the city of Selah and the Selah School District. And that's how we built the second court to four courts. And then we had discussed the maintenance to be 50-50 with the school district. And then the city administrator pulled it out and said, no, that we would do it ourselves. I'm not quite sure how that was based. I think it was based on something to do with a joint use agreement that the city has with the school district. And just for an update, the contractor that we hired to make those repairs is still thinking whether they've got most of it done. They've got maybe a day or two of work left. And you know, I guess I'll say here now that while I'm sitting here, we're not going to do any more contracts without going through a procedure of putting out together a standard spec with everything spelled out in it. Doing the way we did this last was because they didn't want to spend the additional funds to put a document together like that. You know, the thought has always been that the parks are operating on a shoestring budget, so we saved $4,000 or $5,000 by just doing a quick and dirty contract with these guys, and it just hasn't worked out well. I've always maintained, and sometimes I feel like I'm talking to a doorknob, is that if the city wants to have parks, they're going to have to expect to pay for the parks and the park improvement, the park operations. Anyway, so no, they're not done, but that's the reason why they're not listed as a project for that. Those courts are so bad, or they were pretty bad, they're a lot better, but they just need to be ground down, milled off, fences taken down, and repaved, and then a new surface put on them. But cost was too much, so here we are.
I guess I'm a little confused though, if it's a facility or a court that we are required to maintain, or that's regardless of the agreement, isn't that a capital facility or something that should be at least mentioned in the plan?
Well, the parks plan, the prior one, had a facilities priority listing in there of different items, improvements here, improvements there. And I don't recall offhand if it was in there or not, but I remember the last plan, Mr. Jones and Mr. Brown and myself, actually, I got a copy and bootlegged it from the city of Union Gap, and we modified that and made say Selah. Well, this next time we wanted to have it done a little more professionally and everything else. And the city administrator said, no, we're not going to spend any money on it. And so he told, I think Teresa was spearheading that at the time, and told her, no, we weren't going to follow up with it. So that's the reason why we don't have one. I'm just being honest and frank, and you asked, I'll tell you.
To add on to what Joe's saying is, whenever the capital facility plan is supposed to list all of your adopted plans and updated plans. And so because the parks plan wasn't updated, we can only include in this capital facility element that information which was adopted. And so that wasn't a listed project in the prior plan, like Joe was saying. So therefore it didn't get carried forward as a priority project in the capital facility plan.
Council, do we have any more questions of Jeff? Okay, we have a few attendees still on. Attendees, do you have any questions of our of Jeff Peters? Okay, seeing no hands go up there, we'll now close the public meeting. L3, Mr. Peters.
All right. And the planning department's been busy, folks, and we apologize for putting all of these public record, open record public hearings on your agenda, and then bringing all these extra ordinances and everything. As I kind of mentioned to you in past reports, COVID-19 has just kind of compressed everything. So that's the reason for everything kind of coming to you all at once. So this is a L3 is an open record public hearing to consider an ordinance adopting state required amendments to Selah Municipal Code Title 11-19 flood damage prevention pertaining to the regulation of development and construction within the FEMA 100-year floodplain. In short, without going through the background and findings, just like the title says, this is required amendments. The city of Selah does not have very much floodplain that it affects it. We do have some area in our urban growth area and in our future planning areas. And we do have some areas inside city limits, like down near the golf courses. And that's basically it. But nonetheless, because we do have flood plains in our city, and we have to have regulations that comply with state law. And so because we're this NFIP community, which is National Flood Insurance Plan community, every so many years, the Department of Ecology goes and reviews our ordinances, or if there is a change in the flood map for that jurisdiction's area, they then review your ordinance and require you to update your ordinance in accordance with state law. So that way that you can implement the new map changes. So on June 3rd is when the Department of Ecology notified us that there was new maps available and that we had to adopt those flood insurance maps, as well as they indicated that their review of our ordinance said that we were out of compliance. So with their help, we went through our entire floodplain ordinance, made numerous different changes, all of which are mainly process driven, changing definitions, things like that, to bring our regulations up to standards. And so we brought those to the Planning Commission, and they recommended approval, and now we're bringing them back to you for final consideration. That's all I have on that item. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, council, we're going to open this up for a public hearing. Do you have any questions for Jeff? Seeing none. Attendees, do you have any questions? Seeing none there, we will close the public hearing. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, under general business, new business, Kevin.
Yes. One of the things that, as we've gone to more strict Robert's Rules type council meetings or regular council meetings, one of the things that I notice is left out in our earlier discussion on our transit plan was a perfect example. There's a lot of questions or open-ended things that we don't have it's not really, the council meeting isn't the time to present those things. So what I would like to propose is that we add additional study sessions to our monthly calendar. The city of Union Gap does 2 study sessions a month. I had originally recommended to Sherry and to Joe that we go to 1 study session a month. And that's where we could really have some discussions about the things that we see in council meeting nights. The benefit of having this study session is that the council meetings should go much more quickly because we already understand and have our questions answered. So we can just be a part to where either approve or deny the resolutions. So that's what I would like to propose to the council, that we add at least one study session a month for the city of Selah.
Thank you, Kevin. And what night of the week are you proposing that we do this?
I had not gone that far to start thinking about dates. I just want to know if we can start doing this. It would have to fall in line to where we can be pretty much aligned with what the agenda is going to be the following Tuesday. So I'm not sure what your staff schedule is, putting that together, and what your deadlines are.
Okay, Monica, on the agenda,
Yes,
what is your cutoff, Thursday or Wednesday?
it's Wednesday mornings.
Wednesday morning, okay.
Yeah. Wednesday at noon, actually. As far as your study sessions go, just be aware that, well, we have council the second and fourth Tuesdays, planning commission are the first and third Tuesdays. So you'd have to pick a different night of the week so as not to conflict with the planning commission.
So we actually do it on a Wednesday night then, because all the agenda items have already been presented, correct?
They are, to me, by noon on Wednesday is the ideal time. By close of business on Wednesday is usually the doable time, but then Thursday they are reviewed by the city attorney and the city administrator, and then the packet is assembled. So that's entirely up to Joe and Sherry, and the process is up to them to figure out how they would like to pursue that with regard to having study sessions Wednesday nights.
Okay, so Joe, you have your hand up?
Yes. Well, so the way UniGap does it is they put an agenda together for their study session. If the item to be discussed is complicated or lengthy, they'll put together enough information to have a comprehensive discussion. If it's just to discuss items that they'd like to bring to the council in the future we're going to do this, future we're going to do that, or they want to discuss the upcoming community days or the 4th of July event, then it's just a subject in the agenda, and it's just kind of open for discussions. I asked the staff at 2 staff meetings ago what they thought on this, and I didn't really hear much feedback. So I assume that we should be able to put that type of agenda together fairly easily. And if we put those ahead of the actual council meeting, I don't know, could generally have the meeting before, a study session before the next meeting. If there gets to be a lot of comments from council, then we may have to bump it out, but that's something we can discuss in the study session. So that's kind of how they do it. And like I said, I talked to my brother, and he says it took a little while to get into a groove, but then council and staff kind of got things going, and it seems to work pretty good for them. So.
Thanks, Joe. Russ, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm especially since it seems to work in UniGap, but I don't have any major objection to it. Are we thinking this would be something that we would do during the work hours where we wouldn't be paying an extra overtime for staff, or would this be an after hours?
That's up to you folks, whatever is convenient. I mean, obviously we're making it work now after general business hours, but we're here during business hours. So we could do that as well if you guys can make it.
What does UniGap do?
I believe they have theirs at I want to say 6 or 6:30. I think, yeah, it's like 6. You have it at night.
I think the only thing that I would like to add is that with regard to planning issues, which a lot of these things seem to circle around, as we tend to bring items that are controversial, I guess, is that we would want to make sure that these things are scheduled far enough away from the actual item that we can provide appropriate public notice. Because say, for example, we have a study session and I don't know, the majority of the city council has severe concerns over something. And that's going to change the course of the direction that the staff takes on the item.
Yeah. Sometimes we've got 2-week advertising requirement. So
right. So that's what I'm saying is we would almost have to be, like a month out when we have the study session before it's scheduled for city council.
I would think,
I'm sorry, if we have it early enough in the day, you might be able to still have your planning commission meeting if you guys still wanted to stay on a Tuesday schedule.
I'm not so much concerned about the planning commission meetings. I'm just concerned about making sure that as we have our study sessions and we proceed with these items and we're producing, I'll put it this way, we're getting feedback from our city council on potential changes that may have to bring it back to our planning commission or may change the direction of the item that's heading to council, that we do that in advance of that item. So we're not running afoul of having to, rewrite something on the fly or to try to cancel the public hearing with the city council and reschedule that. I don't have a problem with doing study sessions. I've done with council before, both during the day and in the evenings. It really doesn't matter to me, but we just need to make sure we're still able to comply with all of our notice procedures and things like that.
Jeff, I think the great deal of the information at the agenda would be established by staff. So you would still have the majority of the control over that.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying as we were talking timeframes and things, and we were talking 2 weeks before the city council meeting isn't enough for us to make a big change in direction, so that's why as you guys are setting or telling us what you want to hear and what study session topics you want to have, we just need to make sure we're thinking ahead and setting that out far enough ahead of the game so we can get your input and then make the rule or the regulation or whatever we're looking at follow in line with what the council's direction would be on that item.
Okay, Roger?
Yes, Kevin, is your idea it kind of sounds like you want to create a second meeting so we don't have one long meeting. So is your idea to accomplish something different at a study session than discussion at the regular council meeting?
It's twofold. For example, I thought tonight the perfect example of why we should probably have a study session on certain things is the discussion on the transit. Joe saying, this is brand new, I have to go back and have, whereas if we're in a study session, we can start asking these questions and know how the resolution or the ordinance is going to be laid out before it's presented. We can have already asked all our questions. It is to make our meetings more efficient in accomplishing getting through city business. But two, we don't get an opportunity just to talk very often amongst council. And I think there are some things that we would like to, from time to time, would like to talk about. I know Russ would love to talk about stuff from time to time. So I just think it would be a good opportunity for us as a council to be together to discuss and even have, we really have no opportunity to discuss future things that we think might be kind of nice for the city of Selah. And this would give us a more opportunity. Right now we have like what, 1, maybe 2 a year. That's all we have. And so that's what I'm trying to seeing if we can accomplish, Roger.
Okay, Russ has got his big hand right in front of the screen.
As the person who loves to talk. No, I think this is a good idea for transparency purposes. You know, I think it allows us to, you know, if there's something that needs to change before, you know, if we have something on the agenda and it's going to be changed based on general discussion, if we think the council is going a different direction, it doesn't have to be presented that following Tuesday. It can if there's an emergency, but we can just simply notify the public that, hey, the council had some discussions and we think we want to make an adjustment to the plan. No votes were taken, of course, but we feel like it's moving this direction. I mean, that the legalities, I don't know, but you know, I would like to have definitely have some questions answered in a large packet if some changes are made. I'd like to have some time for that discussion.
Joe?
Well, and Kevin is right. The union governor study sessions, they don't always have a topic or a plan going forward or something. Yeah, I mean, sometimes they just have it noted on the agenda that there's no projects or no reports from staff, but it's just, we'll go ahead and they go ahead and meet, and then the council has time to throw out what they'd like to discuss, and that's what they spend their time on. So it isn't always just staff has something to bring to the council.
Well, I think it's a great idea, Kevin. Kevin, when do you want to start this?
I see no reason we couldn't start this in say October. Give us a time, 1 month to kind of figure out how it's going to be laid out, but start in October.
Okay. And do you want it before the last meeting of the month or the first meeting of the month? Does it matter to anybody, council?
I have no preference. I think just once a month a meeting.
Okay. And do we have a preference of the night or the time?
I think Wednesday night sounds good. I mean, the packets are in.
And time?
Is there any? Go ahead, Russ.
I just, as the person who spoke a lot, I was hoping to get feedback from all the council members to see their thoughts, but personally, I think it's a good idea.
Rob, do you have any input on this?
Sure, I can provide you some input. So Selah Municipal Code 1.06.010, which I'm relatively familiar with because I rewrote it shortly after coming on board in 2019 as an independent contractor. The final substantive sentence says the city council may also, when it deems it necessary, vote to schedule a study session to occur on any date and to commence at any time. So the council certainly has this power. Secondly, as to whether before or after, or whether before the first or second meeting of calendar month, if my preference were to be considered, I would suggest prior to the second one, maybe in between. That kind of makes every month have a significance, that if we know such and such coming up in the month of October, perhaps by the first deadline for the first council meeting, staff could have materials ready that would actually be discussed at the in between study session and then maybe still be able to go for the second regular meeting of that month. I don't know if your plan, and my third comment now is, I don't know if your plan is to actually try and hold such a vote tonight, Kevin, or if, as you said, you and Russ would like everybody to ponder on this, and maybe this is something that you could contact me in the coming weeks on, and we could work up actually some text for a written motion for the council to consider its next regular meeting to try and start scheduling these study sessions. I also, as a fourth, maybe and final point, just as a point of thought and discussion, raise the idea as to whether this council wants to make this sort of vote saying, look, we're going to, let's just say, have one of these every single month for the foreseeable future, or if instead to impose this for, maybe a 6-month trial period or a couple month trial period, with the understanding, of course, we're going to have some changeover here in the council. So that's just one other idea I have of the permanence of this, or kind of on a trial basis of it. But finally, I guess my second finally, for myself, it doesn't quite matter all that much. I rarely have much large presentations to give to the council publicly. Of course, I do so typically in executive session. So rather the real headache on getting ahead of the game, so to speak, on this is going to be on folks like Mr. Peters and our new public works director and some of our other staff that frankly, they're usually busy enough that trying to get 2 or 3 weeks ahead of schedule on some of their materials is going to take some lag time to catch up on that. So if we do go this route, I just, on behalf of the staff, ask all the council to have some leniency as of the first couple of these sessions, because they may not go as smoothly as the later sessions might. So those are my thoughts, but I'm happy to answer any questions if council has those of me on this topic.
I agree. I think I should work with you to get the wording down so it's more solid, and then just bringing that to the next council meeting for the rest of the council.
Okay, great.
And Rob, when you're talking about waiting until the new council comes in, maybe we should take November, December and work the bugs out before new council does come in.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I would guess I was trying to say there is maybe we do this on a piecemeal basis for a couple of sessions, and then perhaps do more of a formal change. This can happen, I guess, one of two ways, just by a vote on a resolution that's kind of contained within itself, or instead, the second way could be to actually change our city law, our municipal code, to codify these sessions. As I read it to you aloud right now, it basically gives the council either option.
Okay. So Suzanne, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just have a thought as to the timing and a question related to it. Are study sessions recorded and posted on YPAC like our meetings are?
My understanding is, as of present, they are, because of course we're still in our lovely pandemic situation. If and when we are able to go back to exclusively in-person meetings, frankly, I don't know, because we had so few of those during my time working with all of you. I assume that the study sessions would still be filmed by our former camera person.
Okay, yeah, that was just my thought, that if we chose to do them during the day, that I'd want to be sure that they were recorded and posted for the general public and people that work normal hours to be able to watch at their convenience.
That's probably a good detail point for staff in the intervening weeks here to reach out and try and get some more data on that.
Yeah, I guess I was going to say that in our past study sessions, and Monica might chime in here as well, we did go and record them if they were in the council chambers, and then by YPAC. Sometimes it was just an audio recording, and when we had our retreats, we did do audio recordings, and I believe Monica took minutes, but Monica can answer that. So
she has her hand up right now. Go ahead, Monica.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Historically speaking, in the past, study sessions have typically been just prior to a council meeting. They have always been recorded for audio, and if YPAC is in attendance, then they have recorded them to broadcast on YPAC. The only study sessions of some sort that have never been attended by YPAC for broadcast have been budget meetings. Now, with the pandemic, as Rob said, we were doing that on YouTube last year so people could watch it. And the intent, I believe, going forward is to hopefully continue broadcasting on YouTube even once we're back in person meeting. As far as retreats, YPAC has never attended retreats. Minutes are taken. It is a work session for council. It is not a formal meeting, so no votes, but minutes have always been taken for that. And we have recorded it as required. Study sessions have abbreviated version of minutes, with the exception again of the budget meetings. But other than that, I would think with these study sessions that you're talking about, they would be recorded when you're in person meeting. Then if there's not a conflict with YPAC, then they would come and record them as well to broadcast. And then there would also be abbreviated minutes that would be taken.
Thank you, Monica. So are we leaving this at Kevin and Rob are going to get together
I
and
believe
work out?
that's where it's left, and then we'll have a formal resolution.
Okay, at our next council meeting.
Yep.
Okay, Cliff?
I have to say, conceptually, I like the idea of having regularly scheduled study sessions. Like Kevin has said tonight, it would perfect example of 3 heavy-duty reading assignments that, but then within the last month, we've had meeting that I like the idea of having study sessions. And so when we have this heavy duty stuff to go through and have questions for, as far as the content of what that study session agenda would look like, I'm not sure that, yes, we want to talk about things that are coming up, but coming up like within the next few days, within a week, I think that would be an unnecessary burden on staff. But there are some of the things that we wouldn't necessarily have the final form of what we're getting tonight last month, but conceptually, staff we have these things coming up and this is what's going to be there. And so I like the idea of study sessions where we can talk and in a somewhat less formal kind of setting. But I think, I don't know that let's talk about what's going on the agenda next week is necessarily practical.
If I may, Madam Mayor, just how I'm seeing this is that Cliff presents that in a month we have to present the transit plan. We can start asking questions about what's included in that, and if we have thoughts about, those that have been seen and gone through it can say, "Oh, I wanted to talk about that. Here's do we have the records? Do we have the data to answer these questions. And that's something that can be done before we ever get even close to the time to accept it. So that's I'm not thinking necessarily it's for the next agenda. It's just, these are what are coming up. And if we have questions or want to talk about it, that's when we would have a chance to do that.
I don't have any problem with that. It's just that the idea of almost putting together the agenda at the study session was alluded to, and that didn't sound practical to me. I like the idea of study sessions more regularly.
Okay. Thank you. Any other council members want to weigh in on this? Okay, so Kevin and Rob, you guys can work this out and bring it before council in our next meeting. Thank you. Okay, old business, we have none. Resolutions. N1, Mr. Henny.
Thank you. Action item N1 is a resolution authorizing the adoption of a Selah Transit Development Plan for the 2022-27 annual report. Like I said, this is a 6-year plan, but every year we go and update it, and we try to get in there new ridership numbers, what the receipts are, what the programs generate as far as revenue. So before you is the resolution and a copy of the transit development plan and the annual report. And I'm asking that you guys vote to allow the mayor to, or vote to approve the resolution.
Rush, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just one, maybe we need to, I don't know, maybe we need to accept a motion in a second.
Yeah, we do.
I'll wait for that then.
Okay.
This is Kevin. Move to approve the resolution authorizing the mayor to sign the Selah Transportation Development Plan for 2022 to 2027.
We have a motion to approve by Kevin.
A second.
We have a second by Mike. Is there any discussion? Hey, Russ?
I just wonder if this, with the discussion and earlier and the proposal from MedStar, if we need to push this to the next meeting to address it and have some of those questions answered. Joe indicated he wasn't fully read up on everything, and so that would be my recommendation.
Joe, is there a timeline on this that we have to have that in?
September 1st.
Okay. And then we can go back in 6 months?
Well, we can go back anytime, I guess, if we want to revise it. It's just that I said, I've seen some comments from folks that want to do this reverse route. I see some folks that want to stop at the YMCA Aquatic Center. And so what I was going to do is get hold of the MedStar and get hold of some of these people that wrote in these comments and sit down and discuss it with them and discuss things with the drivers and just kind of have a little hearing session to see what the impacts of this would do, and does it provide any benefits to the riders, or does it take more time for them to go anywhere? And I don't know, Yakima is a lot more responsive to my request to put this additional stop at the front of the aquatic center than in past. So maybe they'll be open to, I don't know, yeah, their transfer station. I don't know. All I said is things are a little different between Selah and Yakima right now. So it's maybe we can get it done in the next 6 months. You know, it might take a little longer. I don't know.
Okay. So if we approve this tonight, if we approve this, we can still negotiate. I mean, we can still make changes.
To the route, oh yeah,
Yeah.
then we'll just have to catch up with this
Okay.
document. You know, because if we can get it done and get it into the hands of Yakima Transit for the book to then put it into the winter book, then it's just, the winter book will have the new route in it and the times.
Okay.
Do we have the ability to approve it as a 1-year plan, a 6-year plan, but approve it just for 12 months?
Well, we'll have to update it again officially next summer anyway. So yeah, that's what we would be doing. I don't know why they call it a 6-year plan, and then they make you update it every year. I mean, I guess because what they want us to do is show projected budgets, projected revenues, but as far as the routes and all that stuff, we don't project out a 6-year route change. We just do annually the route changes if we have any. But the report goes on about the revenue we're generating and ridership numbers and future growth. So we are adopting a 1-year plan, really.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion, gonna have to help me out, guys. A motion to approve by Kevin, a second by Mike. Roll call, Monica?
Councilman Wickenhagen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Matson,
Yes.
Councilwoman Vargas,
Yes.
Councilman Peterson,
Yes.
Councilman Bell,
Yes.
Councilman Costello,
Yes.
Councilman Carlson,
Yes.
unanimous, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution M2, Mr. Henny.
Okay. Well, I think at our last meeting, we discussed that the Law and Justice Committee had done interviews with 2 architects. We sent out a request for proposals, and one was late. And interviewed Mora Architecture and McKinsey. And as a result of the interviews, the committee recommended to move forward with McKinsey. McKinsey has then sent out a contract, and they've sent out a scope of work and fee document. Those 2 documents are included in your packet. We had a meeting last week and discussed the fee proposal, and the committee decided they did not need to go and do any further site visits with other jurisdictional police departments. And we made a offer to do some of the printing down at Public Works as best as we can. You know, I don't know. Sometimes those submittals can be 15, 20 copies, so it might be a little hard to compete with and provide that. But anyway, so they reduced their fee schedule from like 113,000 down to the 93,000. So they went down about $20,000. So they gave us a schedule. They gave us a contract and the scope of work of the fee proposal, and what McKinsey will do and will not do, and what they constitute additional time and they want additional compensation for. Their schedule, just kind of going from memory here, is that they could get started right away. They'll try to provide some conceptual, well, they'll meet with the police chief and make sure they get the size of the building kind of up to where they think it needs to be and what the offices need to be laid out as. And then the committee will be able to sit down and look at those and approve the conceptual schematic. Then once that's done, they'll go and do a preliminary layout and then estimate that, and then come back to the committee with an estimate. And then they probably have that done in January or February, and they can get it done early enough, then we need to decide when we want to go out, if we're going to try to go out for a bond. But they're projecting that'll be in November then they'll go to final design and try to be on ad in the spring of 2023 with a completion date, if I remember right, December 24. So that's about it. So we're asking you tonight to allow the mayor to sign a contract between the city of Selah and McKinsey for the design of a law and justice center. And that's the recommendation of the committee.
Roger,
Move to approve the resolution.
Mike?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Roger, a second by Mike. Roll call, Monica.
Madam Mayor,
Oh,
he
I'm
moves
sorry.
to
Any
speak.
discussion? Russ? Sorry. Russ?
I realize times change and costs go up, and I realize that you get what you pay for. So I'm not opposed to paying more money for a better product. That being said, this is double what we paid previously, and so I just wanted to get some feedback on what the difference is from previous work done in terms of costs.
Joe?
You're referring to the study that was done in 2016?
Yes.
Well, that was barely more than a sketch. It was not a design. It was not even it was barely a conceptual. It did have some space considerations in there, and it did have a real preliminary floor plan and a site plan, which is what will be the phase one. We broke this down into phase one and phase two. But that has been, remember that came in with like a $17 million cost estimate, and that's, council didn't want to move forward with that. So this will take it, that money we spent last time only did the conceptual. This is going to take it all the way out to the end until we get a set of design documents and contract specifications.
This leads us up to construction.
Yes, all the way out to ad.
Thank you.
Jackie? Jackie?
Thank you. I kind of lost where I was on the screen.
I did too. I couldn't find you.
I had a few questions regarding the contract. I'll just ask one at a time and then take my turn again. And I know the committee has looked at this and approved and decided what we wanted things to look like. I'm just in their project goals and program, the new facility is envisioned to be approximately 18,000 to 20,000 square foot. That's quite a bit larger than what we had looked at prior. What is all included in this building?
Mike, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I should be able to answer at least partially. That was their number that they came up with. That wasn't one that we did. So we had explained to them in the last meeting with them that we wanted something that was going to be just for our city. It didn't have to be that big. And that was just a number that they had that they were working on. So the end result is not necessarily going to be that big. It was just a number that they had to work for or work with on their end.
Madam Mayor, this is Jeff Peters. I'm one of the committee members too. I guess what I can kind of speak to a little bit of the Trejo plan. I've reviewed that in the past. One of the key differences about this plan versus, or I should say this contract versus the plan or sketch like Joe indicated, is that Trejo Architects does not have the expertise that McKinsey does with regard to constructing police stations and or law and justice centers. And so what McKinsey did and what the committee kind of asked them to do is, like what Mike kind of indicated, is that to look at all of the state requirements for police stations that we have to have in that building as a form and function, and then to give us an estimated cost or range for those services to be provided in that design. And just like Joe kind of said, you know, this kind of starts out, they will bring it all the way up to a sketch and form and look at the function of each individual rooms and trying to consolidate space together for different functions and things. And they'll bring that back to the committee. And if the committee goes and says, well, look, we're still at a level or a size or a cost that is too great, then they'll start looking at things with the chief and with the rest of the committee and saying, okay, what of this that can you guys live without? Or is there places where we can combine function and to reduce the overall cost and or size of the building? And so that's kind of where I'll say the cost is derived from, or that range.
Okay, Kevin?
I think Jackie had some more questions.
Okay, Jackie, do you want to go ahead and finish?
Oh, okay, thank you. I just wanted to take my turn. On the very last page, Exhibit C of McKinsey's contract, they've got an hourly billing rate schedule. And though there are two columns of numbers. And for example, the principal is 150 to 265 rate. How do we know what we're going to be charged? And then there's a statement on the very bottom of that says subject to change October 2021. Did they provide us with the change of rate schedule, and what are they going to actually charge us?
Joe?
They will charge us the $93,675 unless we start asking for things that are above and beyond the original scope of work that we have there. Yeah, so that's what they're going to do. That's what the contract amount is for. If we sit around and don't make a decision until after October, then there will be new rates in effect. And I suppose they probably already put some thought into the hours that they're going to be spending, which will be after October. They probably already have their rates in there.
I think Jackie has another question, right?
I wanted to offer just a little bit more answer to that.
Okay.
I don't want being on the committee to mislead the rest of the council in thinking that the architect fee is going to be just this. That's to get us to the stage that we know what it's going to cost as an estimate to release for construction. The architect will follow through. So we're just looking at the beginning of what the architect would get. And it doesn't matter who that architect is, that's the way the process will work to go through. So we're very likely looking at many more dollars to the architect, but that becomes part of the overall cost, not the cost to get us to where we know what we need that we can take to the voters and present for a construction bid.
Thank you, Roger. Jackie, did we get your questions answered? Okay. Kevin, did you have your hand up?
I took it down. I would just, I guess I'll ask this of Roger with what you just stated. In looking at the contract, unless I missed the section to where these other duties, but it looked like they would work part of this. I thought part of this contract was them working through the whole entire construction phase. Is that not part of, is that just added on here without the cost being that was presented?
Yeah, the architect, this again is to get our design completed to the point that we have a good number of what it's going to cost, period. Then the architect will work through this process throughout the construction phase, and that will bring on significantly more money, but that's part of the construction cost. It's not the actual building, but it's part of those soft costs that go into it, just like the furnishings of that building are going to be once it's built.
Okay, thank you.
Russ?
Kevin's question inspired additional questions for me. Page 9, item 3.6.1.2 says the architect shall advise and consult with the owner during the construction phase services. And it goes on. Is that, I understand that as being part of this $93,000, or yeah, $93,000, whatever it is, where that's, you're saying there's additional costs, even though it states it in 3.6.1.2.
Yes, those are additional costs to get us through the construction phase. This just gets us up to the point of knowing what all our costs are going to be, and so we can run a bond, so we can prepare for a bid that's an open public bid. And right now, what we're paying for is so we know what those costs are and a conceptual design of what that's going to be. Once we get to that point, they will make community presentations and a presentation to the council on exactly what it is and what their concepts are. Right now, we've asked them to give us more than one idea of what we can look like, and that's part of the negotiation phase to get us to where we end up with a product that's acceptable.
I appreciate and understand and agree with that logic. I'm just trying to read this wording, and Rob, maybe you have some input on that wording for that paragraph. Am I reading that wrong?
Which particular wording, Russ?
3.6.1.2 on page 9. It makes sense. Roger's comment makes sense to me, as they don't know what sort of costs are going to be involved in the construction if we don't know what building we're doing and what changes they're adapting to. But I'm just trying to understand that wording and how that applies here.
3.6.1.2, with your question being what?
So Roger's statement, which makes sense to me, is that the $93,000 will lead us up to presentation to council and of what's going to be recommended, and then there's a different additional cost during construction. But the first sentence says the architect shall advise and consult with the owner during the construction phase services. Is there something that says that that's separate work or separate billings in addition to the contract that's $93,000?
Well, there's going to be a second, at least if this gets approved, and if say this all happens, there's going to be multiple other written documents later on that will be called a contract. There will be a contract with whatever builder or builders, and the architects usually under the AIA come back and circle back with its customer, its owner, that's us as the city, with a new contract also for the building phase, the construction phase. So what you have before you is just a proposal at this roughly $93,000 amount for, as been described by others today, to basically get an idea of what would happen. It's not actually the document that then makes that it happen.
Russ, also the architect's fees are typically just a percentage of your overall cost. So we're not going to know what those are until we decide and agree to an overall cost of what that's going to be. But yes, it'll be significantly, many times more than that to get us a finished product.
Joe?
Yeah, like I say, this is the phase one design. This takes us up, gets us conceptual floor plan, gets us a site plan that we're agreed upon, gets us the estimate for the building cost. It'll even give us an estimate for the soft costs like the furniture and whatnot. And then we go out and seek bond approval. And they understand that if the bond doesn't pass, then we may or may not even proceed on it for a while. And so it'll sit there. So this is for phase one. I think it starts there on page 3 down at the bottom, pre-design, phase one, pre-design, and programming. And this is all the stuff that they're going to provide for that pre-design. Yeah, there's no way that you would design a building for $8 million for less than 100,000.
Thank you, Joe. Suzanne, you have a question?
I think some info I found in here that may be some of the info that Russ is looking for. I'm looking on page 6 under 3.1, where the last sentence says services not set forth in Exhibit A are supplemental or additional services. And at the back of our packet is Exhibit A. It doesn't have a page number here, but it's the first exhibit after the packet. Details those things. So I think that may hold the key here of the info that you're looking for, Russ, because it gives a very detailed pre-design meeting, what the phases are. So I just wanted to point out that wording and see if that may add the context here that we're looking for.
Thank you, Suzanne. Kevin, you have another question?
I think Suzanne I think I was as confused as Russ. I'm just trying to understand why all this other stuff was in the contract, but it's not what we're paying for. So that was my confusion as well. But Suzanne, thank you.
Jackie?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On 11.8.1 are the compensation for reimbursable expenses. So it just states reimbursable expenses are in addition to compensation for the basic, supplemental, additional services, and include expenses incurred by the architect and the architect's consultants directly related to the project. So there is some, the first one is transportation authorized out-of-town travel and substance. And then second one is long distance services. Do we have any concerns that with an out-of-town consultant, that how many times are they going to travel over here as part of the 93,000? Do we have a set amount of that time, or are we paying for every single time they travel over? Will we be doing this during with Zoom meetings, or how do we control those expenses?
I believe that they were included in the contract under there's so many in-person meetings, like Roger mentioned, the city council meetings where they're going to provide the presentations. I believe it's listed in the contract. I don't have the contract in front of me, unfortunately, so I can't give you the page number, but I do recall them talking about that, and that those meetings, or those fees, I should say, are fees that are incurred if we go beyond the amount of scheduled in-person meetings. But the majority of the meetings were going to be conducted via Zoom or some other program like Zoom.
Thank you.
Suzanne?
I can see under the Exhibit A where it does lay out under pre-design, the 1 to 3rd page in, it goes between the 3rd and the 4th. Jackie, it does detail meetings, standard weekly PM meetings, as well as core meetings, meetings with stakeholders. So I think those pages may have the details you're looking for as well.
Picking up on that, page 6 of Exhibit A specifies that this roughly $93,000 figure includes $4,000 of estimated reimbursables, and specifies that McKinsey cannot exceed that $4,000 without our approval.
Okay, Roger?
And just for clarification, we did part of that 20,000 that they dropped off of their initial price was through committee negotiation to eliminate some of the things that they were wanting to charge us for. There was a $4,500 charge to tour additional police facilities. And we said, we've already conducted our tours, and it's not a good expenditure on our part to pay them to do additional ones. When ours were free, especially because Chief Chrisman arranged those for us with other police chiefs. But we had quite a discussion about their copying costs. While those aren't huge in dollar numbers, I think they're outrageous in their price per copy type. And so we discussed those things that we can copy on the city-owned large printer much cheaper than they would charge us to do. So they've agreed to provide electronically many of those things. So what we need in print, we can do ourselves.
Thank you, Roger. Council, are you ready to move forward? Any more discussion? Okay, we have a motion to approve by Roger, a second by Mike. Roll call, Monica.
Councilman Wickenhagen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Matson,
Yes.
Councilwoman Vargas,
Yes.
Councilman Peterson,
Yes.
Councilman Bell,
Yes.
Councilman Costello,
Yes.
Councilman Carlson.
Yes.
Unanimous, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. 01, Mr. Peters.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the ordinance for council's consideration adopting our capital facility plan, or updated capital facility plan. I want to say thank you to Councilman Bell for bringing to our attention some of those clarifications and changes, and council should know that the adopted, or should, excuse me, the copy before you, and then it's on the city webpage, includes all of the recommended changes by Councilman Bell in it. And so your action on this item, should you approve it, will accept all of those changes. Staff is recommending adoption of this ordinance.
Thank you, Jeff.
I move to approve.
Motion to approve by Cliff or Kevin?
Russ.
Russ. Okay, we have a motion to approve by Russ.
Second by Cliff.
And a second by Cliff. Any discussion? Roll call, Monica. I'm sorry, hang on, Mike.
I just had a question regarding the tennis courts. So how much would it be as far as time to get that figured out as far as the contracts that are currently in place? So just like Kevin had brought up, so that we could have this included in this packet.
In order to do that, in order to include it in the capital facility plan, we would have to adopt an entire new parks plan. And so that would take us pretty much a year to complete and bring back an entire parks plan for your consideration. I have spoken to the city administrator on this issue and indicated that this is probably something that we needed to do at least a year or two ago. And so he is, I think, contemplating putting some money in the budget for a parks department to hire a consultant to do this work. But I'll let him speak on that matter.
Yes, we're gonna have to budget something to do a comprehensive park plan. And in part of that scope is we're gonna have to come up with a cost estimate for repairs that. So that'll take a little bit of effort to come up with a conceptual estimate. So, and all the items we want to put in that comprehensive park plan will have to have an estimate with it. Just like we did for our water system plan. We've got, I don't know, A through L, I think we were different projects, and each one gives a brief discussion of what that project is and what the cost estimate is. And so, like I said, that's the thing that didn't want to pursue, because it's probably going to cost. I don't know what it'll cost. We'll have to get a task order estimate from them. I think the last time the city did a comprehensive plan was, I don't know, Jeff Hagler was still here, so it was years ago, and it was around 30,000 if I remember back then. So
Possibly at your next council meeting, I may be able to get a task order from HLA to estimating that cost that the city administrator could bring to your attention.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Monica, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. I actually for Teresa, so I'm going to pass it on to Teresa.
Okay.
Hi, council members, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I can't raise my hand, so I wanted Monica. I just wanted to correct Jeff on that. We have a prepared Parks and Rec plan. Some of you have seen it, some of you have not. They're correct in that it does not have any cost estimates on it because Mr. Wayman decided to wait on all of that, but the plan shouldn't take a year. It's almost nearly done in completion. It just needs to have the money side put to it, but it is lined out as far as priority and all of that stuff is already in it. So there's already that draft completed.
that was a pretty light draft though, Teresa. It needs to be looked at and see what it'll take to update.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Suzanne, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I'm just trying to be sure I understand the tennis court issue. The original contractor is out, you said a couple days left of work, but we're expecting that even after his couple days of work, will these courts still not be operable? Is that what am I understanding that correctly?
No, he claims that he'll have them done. And then we'll have to go out and look at them and see if we're satisfied with them and willing to accept them. And then he's got a warranty period on those courts then after that. But we haven't accepted them yet. And we haven't paid him any money either.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Okay, council, any more discussion? Jackie, do you have your hand up? Go ahead.
Yes. Joe, do you think that the parks plan should be a part of this capital facility plan? I mean, this was last adopted in 2012. And even though it says we're to update it every 6 years, and we have to update its list of projects annually, but we last updated this and adopted its current plan in July of 2012. How do you feel about delaying this and then making sure that it is in its completed form, which includes the parks?
Again, we can adopt this and we can choose to go back and get this park plan done. And we can come back and revise the capital facilities plan to include that. And we can go through whatever we want and re-adopt it. You don't have to wait 6 years. Yeah, there's no requirement to wait. If you want to do it every year, we could.
Thank you.
The danger too of not adopting it and not having an updated capital facilities plan is that if you submit for a state grant where your project is not listed in your capital facility plan, they could deny your request for funding.
Russ, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I got two questions. First question is, what's our timeline for adopting this? And my second question is, if this, based on Jeff's comment just now, if this hasn't been updated since 2012, have we been turned down for grants and for opportunities for money by not having this updated?
No, we have not. They have not gone and I believe looked at that particular list when we were going through grant applications, because Joe has been diligent in getting adopted all of the subsequent plans. So when we've adopted our sewer plan on time and schedule, our other planning documents for our sewer extension of our sewer lines and everything throughout the rest of for the collection system, and as required by state law. And we've also adopted, we're in the process of adopting the water system plan in accordance with state law. And we've also went and did a sub-area plan. So we have a number of different documents that are more important than the capital facilities element of the comp plan, but it is one of the stumbling blocks when they're looking at grants, where they can go and say, you don't have that done, negative however many points it is. But as of yet, I don't believe, unless Joe wants to correct me, that we've actually been denied on those grounds.
No, because all the other applications we have made have been through programs that we have adopted plans for. The only one is if you tried to do a grant through, I think, CRO for our parks plan. I think one of their questions is in there that, do you have a current adopted park system plan?
Okay, Mike?
So that this one item doesn't hold things up, is it best to just approve it as is and then adopt the amendment later once the tennis court is worked through?
Well, there's more than just that, Mike. There's the tennis courts, the whole plan that Teresa was referring to. She started on that probably 3 years ago, and I imagine there could be additional items now we may need to put on there. You need to update the cost estimates. The wording just needs to be looked at to make sure that it's referenced current codes, current requirements. So, but yeah, we can go back and bring back an amendment later when we get it done. Like I say, it doesn't have to wait 6 years. Like this, and this one here, since it's already expired, you know.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, Monica. I'll remove one pen if you help me out. You know, you guys don't stay in the same squares. You're like moving around like little mice here. Sometimes, Russ, you're here and it's just crazy. So Monica, can you tell me who made the motion to approve?
Councilmember Carlson moved and Councilmember Peterson seconded.
Thank you. So we have a motion to approve by Russ, a second by Cliff. Roll call, Monica.
Councilman Wickenhagen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Matson,
Yes.
Councilwoman Vargas,
Yes.
Councilman Peterson,
Yes.
Councilman Bell,
Yes.
Councilman Costello,
Yes.
Councilman Carlson,
Yes.
unanimous, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. 02, Mr. Peters.
All right, there we go. Similar to the last item, this is the ordinance adopting the state required amendments to our municipal code, Title 1119, flood damage prevention. And without, going through the backgrounds and findings of fact, I'll just mention again that this is these amendments are required by the FEMA, and they're required by the Washington State Department of Ecology. And adoption of this ordinance will bring our ordinance into compliance with all of the state and federal laws with regard to regulation of the 100-year floodplain and the properties there within. Staff is recommending approval, and the Planning Commission has reviewed this and is also recommending approval. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Move to approve.
Was that Kevin?
That was Cliff.
Cliff, okay.
I second that.
My second.
Jackie. So we have any discussion, council? All right, seeing no discussion, we have a motion to approve by Cliff, a second by Jackie. Roll call, Monica.
Councilman Wickenhagen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Matson,
Yes.
Councilwoman Vargas,
Yes.
Councilman Peterson,
Yes.
Councilman Bell,
Yes.
Councilman Costello,
Yes.
Councilman Carlson,
Yes.
unanimous, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Reports or public appearances, we have none. Reports and announcements. Chief Chrisman.
Well, late night tonight. I should be able to wrap up my comments in the next 2 hours or so. So, Madam Mayor, I just have a few things I want to share with you. We brought on a new employee last week I told you about, and he's already gone through the academy. So he hit the ground running. We have him in a field training program right now, and he's doing very well. Our other two officers who are currently at the Criminal Justice Training Commission at the Police Academy graduate in just a couple of weeks on September 9th. And so we're looking forward to getting them back and being back at full staff. We also had last week the Guns and Hoses golf tournament. I think Councilmember Costello might be able to speak to this in a little more detail, but what I can tell you is that we raised a fair amount of money and supplies for kids in our area. And so we're particularly proud of our involvement with that. And with that, good night. Unless you have any questions of me, I'll turn it over to the next person.
Oh, thank you. Have a good night. Deputy Chief Gilly.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. You get to see my smiling face tonight as Chief Lang is on vacation. And he likes to remind us that he's on vacation by sending us continual selfies of himself and whatever beverage he's holding on the beach at the time. So he deserved it. We worked incredibly hard last week. Just a quick update. We talk about this little fire we have in our backyard here, Schneider Springs Fire. Chief Lang was out on that in an operations standpoint. He went out there several nights, along with a few of our crews who provided some structure protection, as well as went ahead and sent out our air support crew. However, right now the fire sits at about 60,000 acres. It's only about 3% contained. So we're hoping best with the weather. Hopefully that thing will start to slow down a little bit. If anybody wants any more information regarding the Schneider Springs Fire, they have a Facebook page set up, or you can go to inciweb.nwcg.gov if you guys want more information. Just like Chief Chrisman, I'd like to extend our thank you to everybody that participated and put on the Guns N' Hoses golf tournament. Looks like everybody had a lot of fun. Outside of that, we'll try to keep it short tonight unless anybody's got questions for us. Okay.
Russ has a question.
I just wanted to commend our firefighters. I heard a report that there were no up to this point, no structure lost during that Schneider fire. So appreciate all of our own community firefighters and those who are helping assist.
Absolutely, sir. I'll pass the message on. And Councilman Carlson, thank you so much. Chief Lang was incredibly appreciative of the mass amount of energy drinks you left here. Looks like he's drank about half of a 12-pack already. But if anybody else has anything else, shoot me an email, give me a call, let me know. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Have a good night. Welcome, Rocky Wallace, our new Public Works Director.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I don't have any reports for Public Works. I just wanted to give a brief update on myself. I came from the city of Toppenish. I was there 5 years as a Public Works Superintendent. Previously to that, I was with Kitsap County for over 18 years. I'm excited to be in the community. I have a lot of roots here. My mother and father both graduated from Selah High School, and my grandfather and grandmother have been in the same home since 1960. My grandfather was also the Public Works Director, late 70s to I think it was 86 or 88 when he retired. For those of you who have been in the community for a while, if you remember when Wixon Park got the first log playground equipment, when I was really, really young, I played on that equipment with my Army men since it was just a scale before the city purchased it. So I've been in the community a while, not living here, but this has always been my home. I'm very excited to be here, help the city of Selah in any way I can, and I am really appreciative of the opportunity. Thank you. Are there any questions?
No, thank you, Rocky.
Thank you.
Mr. Peters.
Thank you, council members. I guess I just have a couple items. The planning department's been pretty busy. Building has increased, and I guess prices of lumber is coming down slightly, so that's helping things. We don't have any new developments, so to speak, being built on. All of that we have right now is has already been approved in the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years, and so they're finishing out some of the subdivisions. As far as planning goes, we've been, of course, working on the 2 ordinances that you guys just passed. Thank you much for that. We also have been working on some amendments to our sign code, and the planning commission at its last meeting went through and held their public hearing, and we received one comment and letter on that. But we have decided that, and when I say we, I mean city senior staff has decided to kind of pause the process temporarily to allow us to, on the city, to absorb some of those comments and suggestions from this outside group. And I'll leave it at that. And on that particular matter, also, we're working on 3 different comprehensive plan map amendments that we received this year. So those will be coming to you more towards the later end of the year, probably close to the end of October or first meeting in November. They're 2 of the properties are members of the public are requesting these zoning change and comp plan changes. One of them is to accommodate an existing property that was zoned single family residential when it was brought into the city, and it is presently occupied by a duplex, and there's some complexities with financing if that property is burnt down. So they're trying to take care of that issue with their financing by rezoning the property. There is a second one that's by a citizen off of Selah Avenue, and that particular property had a subdivision, that short plat that went through on it about a year or 2 ago, and the property owner wants to change the zoning to a higher density zone, and then sell it off to somebody else in the community or some other developer. And then finally, the third application that we have is the city's location for the new police station that we're seeking. So those are our 3 comp plan amendment process. They'll be going through public notice here by the end of the week, and then they'll be scheduled for public hearing by the Planning Commission in early October or end of September. And that's pretty much all I have for right now.
Thank you, Jeff. Teresa, do you have anything tonight?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Council members, Roger.
Yes, I will just echo on the Chief Lang attended the commissioners meeting last week, and he walked into the meeting direct off of the Snyder Springs fire, still in his uniform to be out there fighting fire. I want to thank, on behalf of the other committee members on the Law and Justice Center, the council for passing and allowing us to move forward. So hopefully we'll speed that process up to where we're back with a design for the council, hopefully still this year, and presentation from the architect. As far as Spurs is concerned, we still have 2 days of tours, tomorrow night at 7 p.m. and Saturday at 1:30. If you take the tour, about 15 minutes, your entire family swims for free during that immediate open session. So we're moving forward with the levy on that, and everything looks good. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you, Roger. Cliff.
I have no report other than to echo Roger's thank you to the council for moving the Law and Justice Center further along.
Thank you. Suzanne?
I have no report.
Thank you. Jackie?
No report, Madam Mayor, but welcome aboard, Mr. Wallace. Good to have you.
Thanks. Mike?
I have no official report, but since Chief Chrisman left it hanging there, and about the Guns and Hoses golf tournament, just thought I'd let everybody know how well it went. It was, of course, spearheaded by Christina Williams and her insurance agency. And we helped put it together with a lot of the Downtown Association volunteers. And it was very successful. And we had the maximum 20 teams that the Elks golf course allowed. The organization that the money and all the funds were donated to was Voices for Children. And at last count, it was over 11,000 prior to the expenditures that are yet to be taken out, but $11,000 that was raised, along with a lot of donated items. And I know we brought several truckloads or pickup loads of stuff to Elks to give over to the people that lead Voices for Children. So it was great, a great day, little smoky, but a long day for the volunteers that had to be out there all day to set up and then take down at the end. But it was very, it was a great turnout.
Thank you, Mike. I'm sure that there are other things that we all are hearing rumors of that happened at this tournament that you don't want to share with us, right? Chief? Russ?
I do see that Katrina turned on her camera and has a comment. She may illiterate.
Go ahead, Katrina.
So I can just say that the last count, Christina thought after paying expenses, she would be giving between $5,000 and $6,000 to the charity. But I think what happens on the golf course stays on the golf course, right, gentlemen? And Jackie. Jackie was our only female golfer. Hands to Jackie.
I heard that. Thanks, guys.
Any other questions you have on that?
No, we'll leave it there. Thanks. Russ?
No report.
Kevin?
No report.
All right. Mr. Case?
I have no public report.
Thank you. Mr. Henney?
Well, real quick, yeah, Rocky came in, he got involved in projects, and we sat down and discussed things that are going on, and he meet and greet with staff. And I apologized to him because his office looked like the shelves in a supermarket, and it were a typhoon was coming when I left in there. I tried to clean it up, but it was pretty bad. Our crack seal project will be concluded in the morning. I was able to add Ridgeview and 6th and 5th and Sherland Drive south of Crusher Canyon. And how about that? He even got McGonigal Park done. And inside there next where the concession stand is at. I'm going to be probably about $2,500 over the budget though. But we added a lot of roads. So, and we did some extra work on that cheese. And the contractor was willing to add these footages of cracks. But yeah, they did a pretty good job. And so I haven't been out to look, but I imagine McGonigal looked just as good as the roads did. Mr. Novobelski got out the budget calendar. So we'll be and all the budget sheets to everybody to work on and get things going. So we started that process. Maybe Monica has an announcement she'd like to make.
Should I let her out of the cup first? Or leave her in the cup?
I don't know.
Okay, Monica, I only have one pin in you, so go ahead. You put on the spot.
This is actually going to be my last council meeting with all of you. My last day of work with the city of Selah will be next Friday. Then I start with the Yakima School District the following week.
And do you want to say who stole you?
I'll be Bob No's assistant. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to work with all of our council members.
Well, I, for one, am excited for you to start this new path in life.
Voodoo dolls notwithstanding.
I'm not excited for her, Madam Mayor.
You only have one pin, Monica. Okay, Joe, was that it?
That was it.
Okay. The only thing I really want to say is, Joe, I can't remember the name of the company that's doing the crack seal.
It's BCV out of Wenatchee.
Okay. I don't know if any of the rest of you have had any contact with them in driving, but I can tell you, taking my grandson out to daycare the first morning they were here, those boys were hustling and they were very good with traffic. This morning I come down Third. That company is very good with the public. They did a good job out there. So kudos to them, Joe, when you talk to them.
Okay, well, like I say, they wanted to not only get their foot in the door with Selah, but they wanted to make a good impression, so.
They did. You know, they smiled, waved, you know, motioned for everybody to come through, looked, you know, they were looking ahead of what they were doing, looking around, letting cars come through. They just a great job.
Yeah, from what I've seen so far, everything looks pretty good.
Yep.
They don't have product strewn all
Yeah,
over.
yeah.
Things are nicely filled, so.
Yep. All right. We are going to go into a 30-minute executive session for litigation RCW 42-30-1101I. Yeah. So we will take a 5-minute break and come back on.